Hey, welcome back you guys. In today's video, I'm going to show you some of my favorite traps in the Scotch Gambit. Arguably one of the best, if not the greatest opening choice for beginners, and you will see why. So you start with e4 and your opponent plays e5, and then knight f3, knight c6, pawn to d4, and pawn takes. The Scotch Gambit is where you go bishop c4 in this position. Knight takes d4 is known as the Scotch game. Pawn to c3 is known as the Goring Gambit. Another interesting gambit worth covering in the near future. So right now we are talking about the Scotch Gambit. You begin with bishop c4. Now before we go any further, I should mention to say the move that you always need to keep in your mind is pawn to c3 in these kinds of lines, because oftentimes you're going to catch most of your opponents sleeping after playing queen b3 or sometimes queen d5. For example, say black plays bishop e7. This is when you can go pawn to c3, and after pawn takes you simply go queen d5, and black is in big trouble here. They have to accept remaining with a damaged pawn structure on the king side like this, probably losing a piece, by the way. You see, if pawn takes, you're going to mate on f7 like this, but hey, Stockfish doesn't mind continuing playing from here. For example, castle short is the book move, after which you have to take on g7, believe it or not, if you want to maintain an advantage as white. You see, bishop c1 is also fine, but it only becomes a question mark if and only if your opponent finds knight b4. Because say you play queen d1 in this position, now they don't even have to take on b2. All they have to do is to play pawn to c2, and in this position they're going to win some more material. Not to mention that they can also play pawn to d5 here. So this is one trick you need to keep in mind whenever you're playing the Scotch Gambit. But hey, I said in this video I just want to show you my favorite traps in the Scotch Gambit from white's perspective. So my point here is, after you take on h6 with your dark squad bishop and black castles short, the best you can do is just to take on g7 to keep the game going and not retreating your bishop back to c1. So just do that and you will win the game very quickly. They will take, then you will take back, and look at this. It'll be easier for you to win the game sooner or later. You will castle long, you will start advancing your pawns as you like, blah blah blah. So once you play the Scotch Gambit on the board, always keep this pawn in mind, pawn to c3. In fact, this is the main area of our meet. Now sometimes you will see your opponents playing bishop c5 instead of bishop e7. So once again, after bishop c5, you can consider this move pawn to c3. I mean, why not? This is called the Haxo Gambit in the Scotch game. The whole idea is, if pawn takes, now you go bishop takes f7, forcing black lose his right to castle somehow, because if king takes, you have queen d5 check, and on the next move, you simply win black's dark squad bishop with check, and say pawn to d6, you don't even take the pawn on c3, you just play queen c4, because you would love to, you know, take on b2 with your dark squad bishop like the way we do in the Danish Gambit. So it's very active on b2 than where it was on c1. I mean, speaking of your dark squad bishop, again, say black plays bishop c5 and then you go pawn to c3, you won't always see your opponents taking on c3. I mean, especially advanced players, right? You will see the move knight f6. Now as you can see from the eval bar, the game is dead equal, and there is one boring line that you can play in this position which I dislike. So here the main line goes as follows: pawn to e5, then black plays pawn to d5. That's the main problem, you guys, because after d5 you have to go bishop b5 and they have to play knight e4. Then at some point you're going to take, they give you a check. My God, this is the only reason why I don't like the Haxo Gambit, due to this move knight f6. So pawn to e5 once again invites pawn to d5, which is black's equalizing move in the Haxo Gambit. So what I want you guys to surprise your opponents with is the move pawn to b4 in this position instead of going pawn to e5. So you want to play something different to create an imbalance. So they will play bishop b6 and then you play pawn to b5. So black still doesn't have time to go pawn to d5. They only have time to go home after the following sequence of moves. So looking into the Lichess database, the top played move is knight a5 in this position, attacking your bishop, after which you play bishop d3, giving them one more chance to take on c3, which is the top played opponent move, by the way, as you can see. So after this is when you play pawn to e5. At least this time black doesn't have pawn to d5. See that your light squared bishop is no longer on c4, so they have nothing to attack. So this is how you cause an imbalance, you guys. Look at the evil bar once again. They'll play knight d5, the top played move, after which you can either go bishop g5 or my favorite, castle shot, because believe it or not, black is going to copy you as well. Of course, there are so many things that black can do, but I'm just following the top played moves, you guys. This is just one short video where I cannot cover everything. If you want to know everything, simply buy my courses at kasperchess.com or join me on Patreon, sign for membership. Those are places where I post my other extra lessons. Anyway, black is gonna castle shot in this position, which is a blunder, cause this calls for a Greek gift sacrifice, beginning with the move bishop takes h7 check. Who are you? I mean, after king takes h7, now you have knight g5 check and you look like a genius. We know what happens after king g8. You have queen h5 and probably going to mate your opponent very quickly. The most challenging move here is king g6. What do? I see a lot of white players here going queen d3 immediately. That's fine, but the way you continue attacking in this particular position is by beginning with a move pawn to h4. With h4, you just want to go h5, and after king h6, you do a little discovery, win black's queen. After h4, your opponent will probably play something like rook h8, trying to stop this, but this is when you go queen d3. And if king h5, here you have a mate in 3, that I would love you guys to find. Leave your answers in the comment section down below. I want you guys to participate, don't just watch. Anyway, if black doesn't play king h5 after queen d3 check, you will see them playing pawn to f5. But again, you can just take with ampersand, and after king takes, well, now you go queen f3 check. And if king e7, you have this simple move bishop a3 check, and it's just a matter of time before winning the whole game. Pap, mate. So back on move 5 after pawn to c3. If black doesn't take your c3 pawn and say they play knight f6, I just recommend you go pawn to b4 rather than going pawn to e5, because black players know their theory very well in this position. They know that the only equalizing move here is pawn to d5, and you will be forced to, start dancing with your last squad bishop. So definitely pawn to b4 is going to take most of your opponents out of their prep and out of their comfort zone. In this position, if they don't take like we saw and say they just castle short, again this gives you an edge. As you can see from the eval bar, you just go pawn to e5. What else do you know? And say after knight d5 once again, there comes a Greek gift sacrifice. So it's just a Greek gift sacrifice we're talking about in this particular line. In this position, again, you can go pawn to h4. It's not much of a stretch wanting to do this. And you know what to do after this. You go queen d3 check and all that. Oh, by the way, after rook h8 this time, you can just go pawn to h5 check. No need to go queen d3 check. I just noticed this because you are easily going to win black's queen. After this, discovery check, and you have to do that. Then you don't even have to take right away. You go queen d3 check, king g8, then knight take. You see, the game will be equal all the way, but with this Scotch Gambit line that I'm showing you guys, it only takes one wrong move for black to quit chess. Anyway, still looking at this move pawn to c3 in the Scotch Gambit. Now say back on move 4, black doesn't play bishop c5. What if they begin with knight f6? Well, against knight f6, here I have two recommendations, you guys. One might lead to the deuce gambit or the max range attack, and the second one might lead to a position that looks like the fried liver attack. So two moves that I'm talking about here are castle short and knight g5. Let's start with the fried liver line where you go knight g5. Here your opponent will play pawn to d5, and then you take, and after knight takes, wait a second. In this position, you are winning as white, but you need to be very patient. You don't just sacrifice your knight on f7 right away, because if you do that, black will play an intermediate move, queen e7 check, and take your knight with their queen, not with their king. And by doing that, they will also defend their knight on d5 with their queen. So rather than rushing to take on f7, you simply castle short first to maintain your advantage. And after the top played move bishop e7, this is when you sacrifice your knight on f7, transposing the game back to the fried liver kind of two knights defense. If king e6, you always have rook e1 check once again, and if knight e5, you can go bishop f4. Everything is pinned, as you can see. Say bishop f6, because what else does your opponent know? Now you go knight d2, you have time to develop other pieces. If you want, you can take, that's fine, or go queen g3. If pawn to c6, just like I said, you can take on e5 with check, and after bishop takes, you bring your other rook into the game, and it will be chaos on the board. Once again, after knight takes and castle short, if black doesn't allow you to sacrifice your knight on f7, this time say they play bishop e6, the second most played move. Well, here you can play rook e1, pinning the bishop to the king, and after bishop e7 this time, guess what? Instead of sacrificing your knight, this time it is your rook on e6. If pawn takes, now you go knight takes e6, attacking the queen. Who are you? If queen d7 or queen d6, whatever, you will simply grab a free knight on d5. The point is, if queen takes d5, now you simply give a check and win that poor queen. Bro thought he knew how to play chess until he discovered Casper chess. Okay, say after you castle short, black doesn't play bishop e7 or bishop e6, the two top played moves. According to Stockfish, black should play knight e5, which is very difficult to see. I doubt if your opponent will even play this. This knight attacks your last squad bishop, so you have to pin it with your rook, not with your eyes. And see what Stockfish recommends here. Knight e3 is what black should play, but who is going to do that? I mean, human beings? They don't see these things. Bro plays pawn to f6, the top played move here. Why? And now you have queen takes d4 attacking the d knight. They play pawn to c6, and then you go pawn to f4 if you want, or simply knight c3. The knight is pinned. If they play bishop e7, you simply have knight takes d5. After pawn takes, you go bishop takes d5. Say h6, because what else? You simply retreat your knight. Yes, you haven't checkmated, but Stockfish says you are completely winning in this position. Say bishop e6, knight takes, queen takes, bishop takes, and knight g6. Anyway, right, let's look at the last line, the Scotch Gambit, and then black plays knight f6. I said there are two lines that I recommend in this position, the fried liver line, which we just saw, and the other line that potentially leads to the deuce gambit and the max range attack. So if you want to transpose the game to the max range attack, you begin with castle short. And once black plays bishop c5, this is when you go pawn to e5, attacking the knight. And the story is, if knight g4 is played while the main move is bishop f4, you can actually make black lose his right to castle in this position. After king takes, you go knight g5 check, and on the next move you win that knight. The other line goes as follows. Instead of bishop c5, you're going to see your opponents taking your e4 pawn with their knight, and this is my favorite, guys. Look, now you go rook e1, pinning the knight to the king. The move they are going to play here is pawn to d5 first. Now what do? I give you 5 seconds to find the best move in this position that continues to pressurize black and equalize in the game. Let's go. The move in this position, ladies and gentlemen, is bishop takes d5, sacrificing your bishop. This is a well-known line in the double gambit accepted Italian game, Scotch Gambit variation. After queen takes d5, this is when you sacrifice another minor piece, the knight. Knowing black can't take with his knight because the e knight is pinned to the king by your rook. And if you look at this, black's d pawn is also pinned to the queen by our queen. So they play queen a5 most of the times, after which you can now go knight takes. Why not rook takes? Well, rook takes is okay, but knight takes may lead to a mate in 2 scenario should, black mess up like this. That's why we take with the knight, not with the rook. In this position, the top played move is bishop e6, after which you go knight eg5. See, you are just putting more pressure on your opponent. Black castles long, then you take on e6. After pawn takes, you take back on e6 with your rook. This is just how we continue playing this tricky game. After bishop d6, for example, you have bishop g5, and you are just way ahead in development. Start pawn storming on the queen side in no time and win the game quickly. So these are my favorite traps in the Scotch Gambit that involve the move pawn to c3. Right, you guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and share this video if you can, if you want to see many people on this channel. Now, time for you to go and check out my new e5 defense course, which I have also linked in the comment section down below. And I'm glad to say, so far it has received a lot of attention and people are getting it like crazy. So it's an opening response that you try against White's e4 opening. You're going to learn how to play against the Scotch, the Royal Pace, the Bishop's opening, 3 Knights opening, the 4 Knights game, the Vienna game, even the Italian game. So it's the complete e5 defense course that I just launched with my team. You better go and check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye bye.